You'd think after, what is this, our 5th month, that we would have it a little more streamlined, but here we are, here we are. Welcome, everyone. Let's scoot over just a tiny bit so we're centered. Okay.
So Bosco can get in the frame. This is Bosco.
We've already got Darren here, and we've got Prodigal Ink here, 2 of our regulars. You guys can hear us now, right? We are good to go? 8:05, we're good to go?
Not getting any text yet.
Not getting any messages, but,
We got one more new person. 2 new people.
okay. Yes.
Bosco!
Ah, Meg's here. Yes. Okay, we must be good to go now.
Bosco, you got a fan.
Okay, Darren and Prodigal Ink both also say yes. So, let's get started. Thank you. I promise we'll get the technical difficulties figured out at some point, but for now, you get what you pay for. Okay, so let's see.
He's so dang cute.
He is a cutie. He's lucky he's cute.
And smart, too. Not.
It's true.
He's not smart.
Oh, Punkon too. Yep, everybody's here. They're very curious why we've got the lights set up in the living room. They know something exciting is happening. Cody says good morning. Can't stick around too long. Nice to see you, Cody, while you're here. Okay, so let's see. When I went to write my notes for this month, so our general format has been each month we go over, we sort of start out by letting people show up into the chat, and while we're doing that, we're going to go over what we've done over the past month, and then look at what we've done, what we plan to do for the next month, and then any sort of interesting notes, and then for the second hour, we talk about our monthly topic. When I was writing notes for the past month, I was like, wait a minute, am I looking at the right page? Because there's, we've done so much in the last month. We're exhausted, but we have gotten so much done just since our last live stream. There's so much to report about the last month. So let's see, we've got some chat before we get into that. Marcus says, hey, came before going to the Japan festival later. So Marcus lives in Australia, and his local area, he was telling me yesterday, has a Japanese festival. And maybe you want to keep it a surprise, Marcus. He was planning on either attending in one of 2 different outfits. Have you decided on which outfit you're going to wear to your festival? And Helen says, hello, been watching since your appearance in the Japan Times last year. First time catching a live stream. Nice to meet you, Helen.
You're welcome.
Thanks for joining us. Hopefully it won't be too chaotic. Our first few months we were able to do our live streams from our guest house because we didn't have guests staying during the live stream, but the last few months we've been booked pretty much solid, so the live streams are here at our house, which means we have
Assistants.
we have various assistants. Bosco and Ponkon are joining us, and so they sort of keep us on our toes. We try to get the information across and have a nice little conversation, but there will of course be antics going on in the background, I'm sure. Marcus says, I think I'm going with the Toby pants and a, how do you say that?
Howdy.
Howdy with my Jika Tabi. Do you know what those are? I know what his cool pants are.
Yeah, Howdy is the festival jacket.
Ah.
And Tabi is the sandals.
Daughter will wear a kimono and howdy from Ōmishima. Nice. You'll have to send us pictures later. Can't wait to see. Okay, it's 8:10, so let's get started on what we've done for the past month. I'll just run through this list real quick, and then we'll talk about anything that jumps out as interesting. So since our live stream 1 month ago, that was the day before cherry blossom honey harvest. So we then harvested cherry blossom honey, got it into jars, and we are now sold out. So it went very quickly. Well, we think we're sold out. Last we checked was early last week, and there was 2 jars left. So I'm pretty sure they are sold out by now. Actually, it's kind of funny. I think we would have sold out with online sales had I not pulled the jars from the website because we were doing our first appearance at a Golden Week festival here on the island, and I really wanted to have some cherry blossom honey jars for that festival. But if I hadn't stopped sales from the website, I think we would have sold out within 24 hours. But I thought, gosh, I really want to save some jars for this local festival. And so I stopped sales on the website so we would have some jars for our display. And then it ended up taking, I think it's been 3 weeks. 3 weeks to sell out. But it was very exciting. We didn't expect to have cherry blossom honey. That was just a super bonus this year. Evan did all the timing correctly. We pulled it off. So we'll talk more about honey in a minute. Other things we did over the last month was, of course, the Golden Week Festival. We made a whole video about the empanadas and horchata, so I don't need to go super into detail for that. We just got the air conditioner installed in the upstairs bedroom at the guest house, which is something that we were we wanted to get done before the summer heat gets here to make sure that guests can use any bedroom of their choosing. Now, all the bedrooms in the guest house have comfortable air conditioning. We filed our U.S. taxes, which was our first time filing U.S. taxes with Japanese income as well. And it wasn't too bad. So that was, actually, I was really terrified of doing that, and it turned out to be a lot easier than anticipated.
Okay.
I've also been working on, during any downtime, I've been working on the mural on the outside, not the mural itself, but the preparation for painting a mural on our honeybee workshop. Spoiler alert, the preparation might be one of our next videos coming out. And Evan has been working really, really hard prepping for the citrus honey harvest. And I've been working really, really hard at the guest house. April and May, back to back, have been our 2 busiest months since we've opened by far. April and May are both almost double our busiest month from our first year. So if you take our busiest month from our first year, double it for April and May. That's basically what we've been doing. We hosted 122 guests in 49 days. So that was sort of a whirlwind. And during that time, Evan's been monitoring the health of all 25 honeybee colonies every 4 days. So the big thing next on our calendar is the citrus honey harvest. So I'm going to hand it over to Evan for the bee report. So take over and...
All right. Yeah. First, we got a question from Meg. This
Meg.
is a doozy. Do you guys ever feel like you don't get a vacation because people often come to stay there, or there are events on the holidays? Quite.
Yes. Yes.
When do you guys get to have some R&R for ourselves?
That's a very good question.
Well, Danny says we can take a day off tomorrow, and we've been trying to take one day off a week, but so that's been marginally successful. And yeah, self-care is a concern for us.
Yeah. Bosco, your
Hopes and
water's over
prayers.
here.
Hopes
Your
and
water's
prayers,
over
y'all.
here. Yeah, so, okay, I will talk about this a minute before the bee report. We chose to move across the world to another country, and in order for our visa to continue to live here, it's 100% pretty much based on the success of our small business. So it's really easy to get caught up into, we have to work so hard in order for our business to be successful, in order to keep getting those visa renewals, in order for our life to continue in Japan like we want. So, I think we can count on one hand the number of nights we've spent off the island in the 2.5 years that we've lived here. We've just been working pretty much nonstop since we arrived. February of
2023.
2023. Yes, we're taking tomorrow off. We're taking most of the day off tomorrow. And
Oh, that means we don't get tomorrow off, no.
oh, we have one meeting. I told you that. We have one meeting. And then we have a 2-week booking in July, so we might actually plan something during that time, because that's before hornet season, and if I'm not having to clean the guest house every day for 2 weeks, then we might actually get a little bit of a vacation during that time. Also, our friends from New Orleans are coming to visit us for a few days at the end of June, and we're going to take some time off when they're here for a weekend.
Yeah, so that's a doozy of a question. So back to the honeybee report. Yeah, so this is the busiest time of the year for beekeepers, and essentially what we are doing is we are going out, and the bees are trying to reproduce right now, and the way that the bees reproduce is the queen will lay a queen egg, and then as soon as that queen egg gets ready to hatch, she will take half of the colony, and that colony all the bees will gorge themselves on stored honey, and then they'll go and fly away and set up a new colony elsewhere, leaving the new queen to hatch and be the queen there. So it's a risky move, but that's how they reproduce. And so our job as beekeepers is to go out every few days and smush all of those queen cells that appear to keep the old queen from running away or flying away. And so the queen cell cycle takes 16 days from laying to hatching, and so that's the time period where you have to check. So within the 16 days, you have to absolutely make sure that it doesn't hatch. But it's hard. They're hard to see. They're like little peanuts. They're goofy looking things they hang off of the comb. So they stick out. But once as the colony gets bigger and bigger and there's more bees, it's just hard to spot them. So I'm going out every 4 days and taking every frame and flipping it around and looking for those little buggers and smushing them, and that's been the majority of my life. And also putting in new frames as they expand, because they are, with all the pollen and nectar that's coming in right now, they are expanding exponentially. So that is what I've been doing, and it even got to the point where I didn't know I didn't have enough hive boxes, so I ended up having to scramble and build 9 new hive boxes in the middle of last week. And
how many do you have with 2 and 3 and 4 boxes now?
Oh, I don't know.
Approximately.
Well, I have 25 colonies and probably 20 20 or 21 have at least 2. There's only one that has 4 boxes. But I was interrupted from... it's up to the point now where 25 doesn't sound like a lot, and I was just shocked by how much time it's taking me to get through the whole 25, and I'm having to split it up over 2 days now. So I'm thinking about how many colonies I'll be able to do long term, and that's another topic. But anyway, so I got through all but 8 on Friday, and I was planning to do it yesterday, but it got rained out, so I still have to do those 8 today. So I think of those 8, 1 or 2 are going to be 4 stories by the end of the day. So
wow, that's awesome.
That's exciting, and we've got a lot of honey out there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's super cool. We had generous donation of some beekeeping equipment and he funded the purchase of some colonies for us this year, and also foundation frames, which means they have like the hexagonal imprint on them, so the bees can use that as a base to build off of. And I don't remember how many of those he bought. He bought us like 20. I think 300 frames of those, and those are all deployed. Those are all out there. So I'm back to just using our foundationless frames, which I built a couple of years ago. So,
Will you let him out? He keeps hitting his buttons.
so our bee workshop is empty right now, and it's easy to move around in because we don't have any storage there, and that's nice. And in terms of numbers, I don't want to share. I'm keeping pretty detailed notes when I go out there, and I don't want to share anything right now because it's I don't want to count my honey before it's squeezed. But in terms of what matters for us is the business plan, and it looks like we're definitely on track to meet or exceed the numbers that are on our business plan in terms of honey production.
As far as grams of honey that we're supposed to produce this year.
Yeah, volume.
Yeah.
And then the cherry blossom honey is a bonus too, and that's about. I don't know. That's just a bonus on top of what we put in our business plan. And again, I mean, we're basically able to support ourselves here as foreigners living in Japan, and it's just the fact that we have to make a certain amount of money as specified by this business plan. That's sort of the the millstone around our neck at the moment. But in terms of today's topic, which is community integration, I just want to mention that the whole cherry blossom honey thing started because a fellow businessman here gave us. He actually just pulled up when we were picking up a friend, and he actually just pulled up and gave me a jar of cherry blossom honey, and it was just amazing. It tasted like cherry blossoms, and I was just blown away. And then I asked our mentor, "Hey, can we do this?" And he said, "Yeah, that's kind of the other thing that we do here. So we do citrus and cherry blossom, and then also mixed, just wildflower honey. There's other." Main pollinator honey sources, but yeah, so that's set off a whole whirlwind of thoughts and things in my mind, and we made a good profit, a good harvest off of that cherry blossom this year.
Yeah, considering it was all unexpected, and of course the premium for cherry blossom honey being a smaller batch, we were able to charge a little bit more because it took so much more work to actually produce.
Yeah, and we're charging a lot for our honey, and I mean, in comparison, I can get a kilogram jar, which is like 2 pounds of honey from the grocery store. That's 600 yen, so that's like $4, but it's Chinese honey.
You keep talking. I've got to plug everything in. I just realized
Okay.
The laptop's not plugged in.
Yeah, so yeah, and we sell that for like 10 times the price or more, But that Chinese honey is just awful tasting. I don't know what they're doing to it. I don't know if it's even pure honey. It could have sugar in with it. So when I start to do all this work, I realize why everything is. We're live again. Okay, we're live again. Okay. Killed the feed. We're back though.
Sorry about that. Had to plug everything in.
Please confirm that we're back. Testing. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, we're good. Okay.
Yeah. Yes. So we're gonna start harvesting citrus honey this week, and I ran into another beekeeper in the grocery store, another young guy on the island, and he's got a year more of experience than we do, so he's at almost 40 colonies. And I asked him, he just said, "Hey, busy, huh?" And if that was his greeting to me, and I was like, "Yeah, super busy. Got a day off today because of the rain." But so I asked him how long it's taking him to go through the hives, and he said, "Yeah, he only does of his 40 or so, he does it every 4 days, and so it takes him the entire 4 days. He does maybe what would that be, like 10 a day, and by the time he's done with the first ones, it's time, or by the time it's done with the last of his 40, it's time to go back and redo the first ones. So there's other ways there's other methods for controlling swarming, and once I get into the horizontal colonies, it's going to be a lot less time expensive to do all this a lot less time intensive to do all this work because there's no boxes to move. It's just opening up the one box and looking at the frames. But yeah, so we're doing that in a piecemeal fashion at this point. I'm having to split up the inspections over a couple days, and then when we get into harvesting, it's going to be the same thing. We're going to split up the harvest over multiple days, and probably we're going to be able to get multiple harvests from the same colony because the citrus is still blooming. It's
Still blooming. Yeah, it's wild how long they've been blooming. Almost a month so far.
oh, I put it in my notes. I don't know. Yeah, but it probably got another 2 weeks of it. So yeah, that's basically though. We're just super busy, but we're about to be making. We're about to be bringing in a lot of honey. We've
A lot of honey.
bought some new suits, and we bought some processing equipment to help us prepare for that. We just bought all our bottles, I think, or jars.
Our jars just arrived. We've got new labels coming in this week. Same labels, just we ordered more. And we're not sure if we even ordered enough to get us through this first harvest, but we ordered a ton. So.
But we've got some overflow buckets with spigots, some honey buckets.
Okay, so comments that came in. Let's see. So going back to Marcus, he said we need more distracting guests like him to get us to take vacations. That's very true. So you're welcome to come back anytime, Marcus. We'll put you to work, or you can make us take a vacation. Meg says, you guys are resourceful and cool. I love how you always build your own solutions, like making more bee boxes and fixing your own water tank. Fantastic.
Yeah, and actually most people here buy the bee boxes, which I think is pretty ridiculous because it's expensive,
Super expensive.
So our mentor
yeah.
is the only guy, and his dad are the only other guy on the island that make their own equipment. Mm-hmm. That's interesting, and yeah, and the hot water heater's not fixed yet, so ha.
Good encouragement.
Yeah,
yes.
thanks.
Let's see. Then those comments are just about our
Yeah.
disconnect, and Marcus says both would be great. Anytime.
Yeah.
Doors open.
And then the only other thing about the bees is, of course, the pollinator planting project, which continues apace. All the seedlings are doing very well. We don't have enough space for them, so we're having trouble getting in and out of the house.
Oh, it's not that bad. So Marcus, when he came to visit, he helped us tear down the outhouse that we had outside of our house. And so that freed up a lot of space in our little front yard that we have here, which has become Evan's nursery. So he's got all his plants utilizing that space that used to just be an outhouse, and but it's sort of spread, of course. So it's nice to we had the space cleared, and now it's all plants, which is a lot better than it being an outhouse. So it's not too bad.
Yeah, well, so I'm not sure when I'm going to be able to plant those out into the eventual hedge, but they're living plants. They exist, and we just the cherries of the sakura cherries have come into fruition and ripened, and I think they might be falling off now. But I went out and collected this many. We can do a little raffle. Try and guess how many seeds are in here. I think it's about 100 or so. And that's about as many as I'll be able to get through, planting next spring because I'm just by myself. But I also realized that I can take these, the ubiquitous 2-liter bottles, and just collect these and be using them as pots for them, because this is going to be, when you see like conservation projects planting seedlings out, they want to have a long pot like this to encourage nice root development. So we use these for sugar water for the bees, and so I know that I can fit exactly 15 perfectly in a crate, which will be cute, and I can just get these for free from the recycle thing. Mm-hmm. But that'll give Danny some flashbacks to New Orleans when I had I was using milk crates to do similar, and so we had milk crates fit four milk jugs fit in a milk crate in the United States, and you fit them in I ended up with a ton of milk crates that I found in a dumpster, and so our entire shotgun house, like 60 feet long, was just lined with milk crates with little baby seedlings in it.
That was our Homestead version 1.0 back in New Orleans, and that's where Evan's plant hoarding began. So he was always
Not true, but
oh
no, it started
Well,
long before that. But you don't.
but you were in an apartment, so there was a limit to your plant hoarding. That was when your plant hoarding was allowed to run wild, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so Trader Joe's says hi, greetings from Houston. Nice to see you. Houston was the last place we were in the U.S. And I'm not sure how to pronounce that. I'm sorry. It looks like
By Wendy.
by Wendy. What are you planting for pollinators, and how has your spring been weather-wise? Oh, it's Wendy and Rodrigo. Oh, hi, Wendy and Rodrigo. Sorry, I didn't recognize your screen name. Spring has been good.
It's been rainy.
It's been wet, but we were just talking yesterday, and we think that it might be the normal amount of rain, and that our previous 2 springs may have been a little bit on the dry side. So it's been good. We haven't had to water anything.
Early spring was the cold lasted longer than usual, and that did affect the sakura blossoming. But it's our first season, so we don't have anything to compare it to that way.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of pollinators, it's too much to go into right now. I'm just researching online and everything that comes up as like I'm looking at perennials mainly. So for herbs, shrubs, I'm just kind of looking at everything and planting them, and then just buying seeds and planting them from seeds, and then just planting them out to see what the bees like, because you really have to figure out what works for your location. So, like lemon balm is said to be the most attractive to bees, so that's probably going to work anywhere. But you need to look at, because Western honeybees are such specialists, they're going to just pick one thing that happens to be giving them the biggest supply, and they're going to hit that exclusively or almost exclusively. So you need to just know what is blooming at what time in your location. So I'm just throwing everything out there and seeing what sticks. And then on the other hand, because I know that cherries are something that's really good here, I'm also just planting a ton of cherry tree seedlings. Mm-hmm. And those are our main thing for trees. I got some other things like the BB tree. That's some other stuff, but I don't know. Maybe we'll do a whole video on that someday.
Yeah, I thought earlier when you held up the cherry seeds, I thought some people might not have gotten the news that what you're planning to do with these. Because not everybody watches every single video that we make, of course. So Evan is collecting these cherry seeds to make a living hedge of blossoming cherries that we plan eventually to plant around our bee yards and farmland. So we'll have a multi-purpose living fence that also blooms beautifully in the springtime. We've got some questions here. Well, Marcus said Marcus also collects crates, so
nice.
Team crate over here. And Trader Joe's says, please can you explain in a few words why you moved to Japan? How is the Japanese countryside? It's hard to say in just a few words, but I would say basically our story is we were living in New Orleans. We're both from Oregon originally. We transplanted ourselves to New Orleans, and when we were there, we taught ourselves natural farming, and we bought the lot next to our house because we lived in the lower Ninth Ward, which has a lot of rebuilding left to do, and sort of becoming like an urban farming neighborhood.
From Hurricane Katrina, it was destroyed by.
So we had a 1/4 acre homestead in the city, and we learned everything that we know basically about gardening and farming there, sort of trial and error, reading books and watching YouTube videos. And then we decided that we wanted to be even further outside of the city. So we wanted to take what we had, which was just a little urban farm, and then we were also learning about Airbnb there because in New Orleans it's very common for your house to be a duplex. So we were renting out to guests there, and even though we were in a bit of a rough neighborhood, we had a lot of success with our Airbnb there because we had a fully fenced backyard and almost 100% of our guests had dogs. So we took what we learned there and we said, we'd really just like to be further outside of the city, and then why limit ourselves to the US? Because we don't have a big savings account, but it would go a lot further outside of the US. So we were looking at Mexico and Japan because Evan speaks Spanish and Japanese and has a long-standing connection to Japan. He'd lived here before. And am I doing a good job? This is
Yeah,
basically our story.
that was more than a few
That
words.
was more than a few words, yeah. There's many reasons why we chose Japan, but we are very happy that we did. And how is the Japanese countryside, Evan?
It's very peaceful, and we have no free time.
Yeah. We're working very hard to get to the eventual picturesque Japanese slow life, countryside life, but our last 2.5 years have been working very, very diligently in order to get everything established in order to have that slower countryside life.
Yeah, and then Helen says, I've never seen flowering cherries as a hedge before, and she thinks I'm on to something. And yeah, creating an attraction for the island, I think, could be a great, since Danny's a photographer and she has a lot of experience in social media, we're actually making everything sort of like Instagrammable, which, I mean, I just like the landscaping aspect of it. I'm really kind of more interested in just maintaining nice places than I am making money off of it. So that's a way to actually make money doing what I want to do. But my inspiration for the hedges is the English hedgerow, so you can look that up. Cherries are a common element of those hedges, but hawthorns are one of the most popular. So you can look up, if you Google hawthorn hedgerow, you'll see those in full bloom around now, May, in England. And so those are pretty lovely, and they look similar to what I'm hoping to achieve.
Meg says people who don't watch all your videos are missing out. Meg's one of our biggest fans. I always look forward to her comments. No pressure, Meg. You guys are a great team. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I wish we could fast forward time and have the hedgerows now. They are going to take a long time to get established, but we're starting now, so...
I could go get a tree. I could show how big they are right now.
Maybe next time.
All right.
Yeah, next month we can do show and tell with your baby trees. So let's see. Yeah, that's been we're at 8:40 now, and that covers our quick overview of everything we've done the last month, which has just been, I don't know how we did all that in 1 month. Coming up next month, we have a little bit of a waiting game. So right now, we are waiting on the results of our subsidy application. So we spent many, many months preparing for the small business subsidy that's offered in our local area for expanding young businesses. And we have been working very closely with our business consultant from Matsuyama, and he actually found the subsidy for us, brought this to us and said, hey, I think this would be great for you guys. He wrote up a really detailed application, which is fantastic. I haven't wanted to share the actual application itself yet. I thought we'd wait until we got the results, which, of course, hopefully we get the subsidy. But I don't know. I didn't want to share it ahead of time, but it's a really good application. We feel really good about it. If we get that subsidy, then we're going to be able to add a second toilet room to the guest house, which will allow us to more comfortably host larger groups of guests, which is great because we get a lot of large sighting groups coming through the area, and that's been our long-term plan all along. Was we said, one of our future phases of renovation would be to add a second toilet room. So this small business subsidy would help with that, and it would also help jumpstart our expansion into the our retro shop in the guest house garage, which is another step on all of our steps of all our little plans for slowly expanding our business here. So we're waiting on the subsidy results. That could take a couple of months. And then we're also waiting to hear back from the bank. We've applied for a small loan from the bank to fix the guest house garage roof because it is currently getting a little bit of water damage. We're a little worried about the state of the guest house garage. Of course, it's bamboo and mud walls, so we don't want any further damage to accumulate to the guest house garage because we have to do all that renovation, of course. So we don't want the water to damage the mud walls, and we're getting close to rainy season, so we got to get that figured out. But right now we're waiting to hear back whether or not we can get a loan to fix the roof. Then once the roof is fixed, we can start moving antiques in there. The only other little thing that I have written down that may or may not be coming up is I can't give any details yet, but we've been in talks just the last few days with I guess I can say it's a major TV broadcast company in Japan, has contacted us, and specifically they want to come film our citrus honey harvest, which is happening very soon. So we have, it's not official yet, so I can't announce anything, but we do have a video chat scheduled with them this coming week to determine if we would be a good fit to be featured on their Japanese TV show. So that's pretty exciting. And that's all we've got coming up right now. So June is a bit of a reprieve from the guest house. We don't have a whole lot of bookings, which is actually really good timing because then I'll be able to help Evan with the honey harvest because we do all of that together. So pulling the frames, spinning out the honey, putting it in jars, getting the labels on, and getting it to the farmers markets and on the website. We work together for all of that. So the fact that we don't have a ton of bookings for June is actually sort of a blessing in disguise, because it's perfect timing. And I think we've got some comments coming in, so let's jump back to that.
Trader Joe's. Great explanation. I have heard that it's mandatory to speak Japanese when moving to the countryside. It's not mandatory, but we're going to go in, talk about this when we get to the second half.
That's actually this month's topic. One of our biggest things we're going to be talking about is language.
Yeah, so. It's not mandatory, but I don't know why. Yeah, we'll get into this. I don't want to be mean about it, but I don't know why you would move somewhere when you can't talk to the people that live there. Just being real. I think the people are more honest in Japan. Definitely, it's a very trust-based society. You don't have to worry about what's in the sausage, if you catch my drift.
Well, I mean, we don't lock our doors, and I felt like there were two instances that I think were a really good introduction to the Japanese countryside. I'm going to tell these stories real quick just because of this comment, and we've got some time to fill. The first moment was both the same friendly neighbor, actually. This is a funny story. When we bought our truck, we have one of those cute little Japanese K-trucks for farming. When we bought our truck, we had our contractor was sort of helping facilitate that. We bought our truck from a retiring farmer on the island, and when we went to pick up the keys to our truck, he was wearing one of those bandanas because it was summer, it was hot, and everybody wears the bandanas when you're sweating and working here. And he took his bandana off, ripped a piece of fabric off of it, looped it around our car key, and hung it on the turn signal right inside the car, and he said, "That's where you keep your key. You never even have to take it out of the car." So, I mean, yeah, we don't lock our doors. We don't really even have to lock our vehicle. So, the other funny story was shortly after we moved into this house, we had keys for everything, and Evan was unlocking the garage, and a neighbor came by and was like, "You're in the Japanese countryside. You don't nobody locks their doors. Nobody locks their doors here." So Evan got a little teased for locking our garage door, and I think that was the last time we locked the door. We haven't locked it since. So, Josh says, "Hi guys, first time tuning in from Suma, Kobe. I'm thinking about getting bees in a year or two, but don't have a bee sensei. Also don't have great Japanese. Was wondering if you're thinking about running seminars." Well, welcome, Josh. That sounds, I mean, bees are great to get into. I don't know if you've tuned into our live stream or our videos before, so I'm sorry if this is repeated information, but when we were first learning homesteading back in New Orleans, we were doing farming and pickling and chickens and all of that, and I was afraid of, we wanted bees, but I was really anxious about it, and once we got bees, I just loved it. I mean, they really are, obviously we like bees. When we moved here, we decided to make that more of the focus of our business as opposed to just a small part of it. But it was just immediate. Like, I was nervous about getting bees, and then as soon as we got them, it was just, I mean, they're just so cool. I just don't know how to explain it. But, and the fact that they cohabitated with our chickens so well was what really sold me. It's just fun. They're fun to watch. They're fun to observe, even if it's not on a business level. Just keeping bees and learning about bees and just observing their behaviors is so much fun, personally. So I hope you enjoy getting into bees. It's okay to not have a bee sensei. I mean, that's sort of how we learn in the U.S., and then here we really lucked out with having some local guys.
Well, we did have some. It's really, there's a lot of stuff that's going to depend on your locality with keeping bees. So it's a really good idea to have someone local to you to tell you what's blooming when, and things like that. And the way that they keep bees in Japan is a lot different than the way they keep bees in North America. So there's a lot to learn that's specific to here. So I mean, I can tell you what I know. It wouldn't take too long, but I'm sure you can find someone locally that would help you out.
Yeah, you do have to connect with your local bee community. So I'm sure you will find someone. I'm sure there's somebody in Kobe or outside of the city who's doing bees, and
Kobe is not too far from Ehime, so I'm sure a lot of the same stuff applies. So.
But yes, we do plan on eventually, part of our long-term business plan is hosting workshops. I don't know when we're actually going to get to that point, but part of our business model coming here does include education and bringing people and teaching people about bees.
Yeah, and the timeline for us in terms of the bee seminars is we're planning to do what we're calling natural beekeeping, and the fact of the matter is that right now we're running our bees pretty conventionally because of our visa constraints, and so the thought is that once we get our 3-year visa approved, then we can switch to like a 3-year model as opposed to a 1-year model. Then I'm going to start going into the horizontal frames and things like that, and I won't have to worry as much about just squeezing my bees for every last drop of honey, But yeah, for you and for anyone else who's interested in bees, do look into horizontal hives. They've started becoming much more popular the past few years. Leo Sharashkin in the United States is one of the major proponents of them. And basically, Japanese beehives, the ones that you'll get in if you don't build them yourself, the ones that most people use are the same dimensions as a standard Langstroth hive that's used in North America, but they have these sort of like funky, like they call them skirts, scato, that locks them onto the one below, and the one below has a little lip that it sits on, and so they kind of like fit together. They interlock as opposed to just the American ones just sitting on top of each other, and the bees will propolize them together. And they're basically just optimized for being carted around on the back of a truck. And so if you're not carting them around on the back of a truck, there's absolutely no benefit to using those other than the fact that everything comes to fit that standard equipment, and it's easy to build, or it's easy to buy stuff for that. So definitely look into horizontal hives. And for me, for the stuff that I would be teaching people, I'm really only interested in teaching people horizontal hives. And since I don't have any horizontal hives yet, that's the big thing. So my plan is to get the 3-year visa, transfer all of our bees over to horizontal equipment, which I have to, of course, build first, and then figure out how to use that, and then start teaching that to other people. So
Yeah. And what I would like to do, I mean, what I've always envisioned before we get to the point of, workshops, that sort of thing, is we envision, okay, farming and the guest house, and I would like to host people to come stay at the guest house in exchange, sort of like either exchanging for like a work exchange or coming for say a week-long class or something, and everybody stays at the guest house, and we just sort of have like a intensive event like that. However, like Evan was saying, because we only have the 1-year visa right now, so each renewal, so we had the 6-month visa, and then we've had 2 1-year visas, and that's just really it's a bit grueling, to have to prove to immigration every year that our business is successful. So we can't be as giving with our guest house as I would like to be. So at some point, it would be really cool to be able to use our guest house as a way to get people here in exchange for, farm assistance, which can also be training. It could also be, education, but also just having an extra pair of hands. But that's another thing that we're looking at once we get the 3 or the 5-year visa, that we'll be able to be more generous in exchange for things like that. So that's part of our longer term plan. Keith says, greetings from Oregon. Hi Keith, fellow Oregonian. Thanks for sharing your story and the interesting content. Matt says, good morning guys. We'll be arriving in Japan on Tuesday for a 2-week road trip. Sorry we couldn't book with you guys this time. We have too many places to visit. That's for sure. Japan has so many places to see. No, I'm sure one of your future trips, you're welcome to come stay with us another time. Marcus says, even in Tokyo, I've known people not to lock their door. That's surprising. I don't know about that. Meg says, I am interested to hear about how your community helps each other out. Like Evan getting gifted the mushroom log, trading good bee tips, and locals offering ideas for your eco-friendly food packaging. Yeah, there is a lot of interaction with the community, and that sort of goes along also with our monthly topic of community integration. So we can definitely get into that, which it's about time to jump over to our monthly topic. Let's go through the rest of our comments first, and then we'll go ahead and get started on that. And Meg also asks, along with that, what is your favorite thing about your community? Any favorite local businesses? Yes, and that's also what we'll be talking about. Josh says, thanks, that's helpful. I'll check out Horizontal Hives. Steve's here, Real Rural Japan. Guys, if you don't follow Steve's channel, he's got a lot of interesting takes on his life in rural Japan. So nice to see you. Poncon is snoozing off screen, but he was active in the first 15 minutes of our live stream here. Trader Joe says, I have had my neighbor's bees in my garden. The whole sky was full of bees, and then they formed into a lump. Yes, that is called a swarm, and they are not actually scary or aggressive when they do that. That means that part of their colony has split off from the original colony and is looking for a new place to live. They're actually super duper docile when you see a swarm of bees because they don't have anything to protect. So
that's when you call up your local beekeeper and he comes out and
can just scoop them up and put them in a box and take them to a new home. Yeah, definitely call a beekeeper in that instance. Gerald says, I wonder if you could partner with a local school or university to do an international student exchange work program. Maybe with those people who come to teach English in Japan.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. And there's woofers too.
Yeah, woofing is, what does it stand for?
Willing workers on organic farms.
Willing workers on organic farms.
Imabari City also offers a local farmer set it up a program where they will partly pay the salary for it's like a paid internship that Imabari City has set up for 1 year. So
I love that everybody loves Poncon. Everybody's here for Poncon, not for us.
And where is he?
He's over there sleeping. I don't want to disturb him right
Yeah.
now. Okay, so it's just about 9 o'clock, and we've got a lot of questions sort of focusing on our monthly topic, so let's jump in. We want to talk about community integration today. We get a lot of questions about this, which is why we chose it for today's topic. Mostly the questions sort of revolve around, how have you been accepted by the community? How have your neighbors responded when you moved into the neighborhood? And, language. We get a lot of language questions because I don't speak Japanese very well yet. So I thought that this would be a good monthly topic because we get a lot of questions about them. We didn't make a lot of notes to go off of. I thought we would just sort of wing it. We have a few bullet points here that we thought we could talk about, but definitely if you have specific questions about community integration, let's jump right into that. And I think this will be a fun topic to cover our second hour here.
And Danny doesn't like winging it, so
I don't like winging it, but
please help by asking her questions.
Yes, if you ask me specific questions, that's very helpful.
Language is a big part of community integration. Being able to communicate with your community is a big part of integrating. So that's the first, big point I wanted to make. And I don't want to be mean about this again, but it's just I've met so many people here, so many foreigners who come to Japan and they don't speak Japanese, and I just don't get it. I'm not saying it's wrong at all. Don't get me wrong. But I would never move to a place where I couldn't talk to the people. And
I think the reason well, I know, and also to go along with what you're saying, I could not have gone through the immigration process with my level of Japanese. So people who do that, I guess, is like, it's just such a added.
It seems like it's harder than just learning the language,
For sure. And I feel like as soon as we got here, we knew on day one that the community was very welcoming to us. And then, when we chose the guest house, we bought the guest house first and we moved in there while we were renovating. And so, backing up, before we even arrived on the island, we started emailing people and reaching out to some of the small businesses in the area and saying, hey, we are foreigners, we're thinking of moving to this island, and this is sort of our plan. And we got, messages back from people saying, great, let us know how we can help. So before we even got here, we started putting feelers out into the community. Then, when we arrived, people were just very welcoming to us, and they said, oh, well, you want to start a farm, you want to do beekeeping, here, let me go introduce you to these people who are involved in that field, and these are people you're going to be working with. Then we bought the guest house, and when we moved into the guest house, then we knew who our immediate neighbors were going to be, and they were also really, really welcoming to us, to the point that, when we were renovating the guest house, new to Japan, we just jumped right into renovation. We're working on the visa process, working on things, and living in this house that, was very much not inhabitable when we first moved in, speaking of the guest house. And the immediate neighbors all go on nightly walks. And every afternoon, they would congregate in front of our house, and they're all friends, of course. They've all been neighbors for decades, and they would ask Evan, what'd you guys get up to today, or and then they'd continue. They'd have a conversation every evening about, well, what have they done today. But I think part of the reason that we were accepted so quickly is because of Evan's language ability. So I do think when you talk about integrating into the community, the first step in integration is being able to communicate. So I couldn't have done this alone. I really don't think. I think if I had shown up in Japan by myself and said, I want to do this, but I speak the language level that I have, I don't think I would have been accepted as quickly, and it would have been just incredibly more challenging. So while I am encouraging you guys to learn Japanese if you plan to move to Japan and to be able to communicate with your neighbors, I am also saying that to myself. My language is coming along a little bit. I'm able to have a little bit more of an understanding with my neighbors when I run into them, outside of the house, and I'm walking between the guest house. I'm able to have some exchange some niceties, that sort of thing. But definitely, I am saying this as a suggestion for you guys. I'm also saying this as a suggestion for myself. So, Evan, what do you have to say, and then we'll get caught up with all the comments.
Well, I'm just going to respond to, we have Meg and Gerald here, just making the point that, it's about putting in an effort to learn the language. And I'm just going to try and kindly push back on that and say, no, it's not about making an effort. It's about just communicating with people. So we're having this conversation about language, and it gets into these like abstract notions like effort, and I'm talking about just a very concrete thing of being able to communicate, saying, hi, how are you, to your neighbors. So, imagine you're an American living in the United States and you don't speak English, right? And you're out there mowing your lawn and someone comes up to you and you have to just communicate with gestures. And, that would be a very... How would you do that? You wouldn't be able to. So don't beat yourself up if you don't speak Japanese. Don't think you have to speak perfect Japanese in order to be accepted. So to that extent, making an effort is absolutely what it's about, just putting yourself out there, having a sense of humor and not being afraid to fail. Those are the things that are gonna get you that initial kind of thing, and that initial connection. But then from that, a culture is made up of all of these little innuendos and inside jokes and cultural references. Danny and I have started reading The Tale of Genji, and it's just a massive soap opera to get into it, but what's really interesting is that when they talk to people, and it's written in the 9th century, I believe, or the 10th century, but they'll talk to each other and they'll speak in a poem, and then there's a footnote, and the footnote explains the poem, how it's a reference to this other Chinese poem. But this is what culture is. This is what society is. And I mean, so I'm not deluding myself that I'm having these amazing like cultural connections with my neighbors because I'm able to like get an air conditioner installed and things like that. Like don't get me wrong, it's a lifelong process, and it's just you have to be able to you have to be interested in approaching it on that level. Like it's not just talking to your neighbors too. It's being able to read the manga and being able to read these classical works of literature that are what make Japan Japan.
Yeah, because I mean, my level is just like, it really is just exchanging niceties. It's just a greeting to your neighbor, because a lot of our neighbors are outside a lot. They're, you know, uh,
And I was an English teacher before. I was an English teacher in Tokyo about 20 years ago, and so I saw Japanese people learning English, and I got a really good education in what worked and what didn't with learning a language. And I could just tell right away that the people who we were scoring our students, right? And we were scoring them on something called fluency. And so, I got to learn what fluency means, and it basically just means like the ability to speak readily. So that means that you might only know 5 words in Japanese, but if you can use those 5 words in a sentence as opposed to just pointing at something and saying dog, right? You can say it's a dog. You come across as so much more fluent than someone who can't do that, right? And so that's as soon as you learn a word in Japanese, start putting it into practice, speaking to actual Japanese people, not like in your head thinking about all the connections or the cool things that you can know about that, but actually go out to a flesh and blood Japanese person and say, hey, dog on the street, walking a dog, petting a dog is barking, dog is cute. Anything like that is, that's how language works,
Mm-hmm.
So it's really interesting, and I don't know, I'm not going to say too much more on this topic, but because it's really interesting how abstract people get, where we're in this like atomized society where everyone's on their phone all the time. I mean, we're talking on the internet. There's nothing wrong with the internet. The internet's an amazing tool, but we can't imagine that it's replacing flesh and blood communication in the same way that we can't imagine that like translation software is replacing the ability to actually communicate in the language.
Yeah, that's one thing that I wanted to talk about is, I have only a few times, we've been here 2.5 years, and when I've only a couple of times pulled out my phone and used like a translation in-person communication thing. And I know a lot of people sort of rely on that and use that on a regular basis as a way to communicate with people. And from what I've seen, like when we're with a guest at our guest house, or someone comes to visit us, and they pull out their phone to have a conversation where they use hand gestures to say to a Japanese speaking person, well, we can communicate using this phone. So then they speak into their phone, and then the phone speaks Japanese, and then the other person speaks back, and it translates it to English and speaks, and they're able to have a conversation. And what I see with the Japanese people that they approach and use this with is that at first they're like, oh, this is cool, this is like a novelty, this is like an interesting thing, I can actually communicate with this person who doesn't speak my language, and how cool is that? But then over time, if you pull out the phone, and then they have to do that, over and over and over and over, eventually it loses the novelty, and then it seems, it's pretty clear that it pretty quickly becomes a burden. If you're dealing with another business or another person on a personal level, and you're constantly having to take 2 and 3 times as long to communicate, because we have to speak through this phone, and of course there's phone glitches, there's translation errors. We love Poncon. Poncon is the star of the show. I accidentally adopted Poncon because of a translation mistake. I don't know if I've actually said that on the channel before. Marcus and a few other people know this story, but you know, the translation apps aren't perfect, and sometimes, like if I use the auto translate to talk to businesses over Instagram message and things like that, and sometimes I get a response back that I'm not expecting, and I say, wait a minute, Evan, will you read what I messaged this person and then what they messaged back, and will you tell me, this is what I meant to say? Is this what I actually said? And he's like, no, that's not what you said at all. So, there's only so far you can get using the auto translate because it's really not perfect. Punkon's superhero origin story. Yeah, I guess I can tell this story real quick. I
Go
don't
for
want to go off the rails, but so when we adopted Ponkon, he was living at the Family Mart convenience store, and he was surviving by tourists going into the Family Mart and buying little satchels of food and going outside and feeding him. And the local dog rescue that we love shared a picture of Ponkon, and I said, or was it them or was it somebody else? I don't know exactly who shared it, but I responded because I was Instagram friends with the person that shared the picture of Ponkon, and I said, oh, I'd really like, after we're done remodeling the guest house, to foster cats and get involved with fostering. So we'll take in strays and, foster them for a short time and then they'll go on to their home. To me, that's what fostering means. And the response was, when can I bring him by on Sunday? And at that point, I was just like, oh, it's an orange cat. He's got such a deep voice, and we thought he was an old man. We thought it was an old man cat. He was just really sick. Anyways, it was a translation error on my part. I typed it into Google Translate, sent it to the person, and I had apparently adopted a cat. So we're very happy that we did. It was like the worst possible timing. We had just gotten here. We just started the guest house renovation, and I wasn't then going to say, no, 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 I didn't mean adopt the cat. I didn't. I could have backpedaled and probably gotten out of it, but I thought, I just love orange cats. They're always so silly. And we did it. We adopted the cat right at the beginning of the renovation. And of course, we're so happy we did, even though, Ponkon, he was completely feral. We don't think he'd ever been around people. If you know Ponkon's story, it was 1 to 2 months of him just hissing and being angry and hiding. He ran away 2 times. We had to
Oh, look,
retrap
another
him.
cat.
Speaking of kitties. Yeah, so anyways, Ponkon was a long process of getting him to come around, and now he's the best cat we've ever had. No offense. No offense, Sumi. Anyways, that was sort of a detour. Yes, it was a happy accident, but that was it was a translation mistake on my part.
Yeah, and that led to us never being able to leave because we have to find someone to watch our animals. That's not true, but we have a nice friend to watch our animals. But it's just another hurdle, when we're talking about taking vacations. So
Yeah. So just an interesting segue talking about community integration. And now we have Bosco and Ponkon and Sumi.
okay, so yeah, that's language. If anyone have any comments on language, I'll read through just a few that we have.
Language specific comments.
FPC Football says the first part of his plan is to go to a language school for 18 months.
Yeah, that's a great idea. That honestly, I've heard from a few other people who plan to do that also.
Yeah.
Coming here on I guess that would be like a student visa. I'm not sure exactly.
Yeah, and you can you can start working towards your business while you are a student too, if you have if it works out time wise.
Yeah.
N5 is considered social greeting level. I don't know. They didn't used to have an N5. It used to only go to down to N4, and they added on the N5 to get people to sort of onboard onto that program. I think because they have more international students than they used to. Meg's friend is studying for the N5, so good luck. I'm studying
Meg,
for
I
the
hope
N2.
I hope your friend has success on the N5. That'll be the first one that I go for once I get to that point, of course.
Steve's studying for the S2. Steve Hungo.
Steve,
Meg's,
I didn't even see your jokes. Oh.
I found that when I went to Quebec, even though I'm not the best at speaking French, so many people were ready to help me out. And that's French people, French Canadians. So let that be a lesson to you. If French people are going to help you, then you know that Japanese people are going to help you. Yeah, I got to order un pogo and Michigan. The guy thought I was fluent.
That's like something out of a movie, accidentally adopting a dog because of a Japanese translation mistake. Well, we're very happy to have Ponkan. He's sort of like a dog. Yes. Meg,
Oh yeah,
it was meant to be.
Trader Joe's wanted to ask just about our job. Yeah, so
Trader Joe says, if I may ask, what do you do for a living? And then also says, do you grow crops?
Yeah, he just said that. So yeah, go ahead and I know you're new to the channel, so go ahead and I'd encourage you to subscribe and watch where we talk about this stuff. Basically, we run a guest house and we are beekeepers. So right now the guest house makes more money than the beekeeping, but I think from this year, I think the beekeeping is hopefully going to surpass the guest house income, and then moving forward, the beekeeping is going to be the major income source for us. But
yeah,
long story short, we run a guest house and we are beekeepers, or we are beekeepers who run a guest house.
Yes, I would say beekeepers who run a guest house, and then we also have this fun YouTube community as well. But a step back from that, because the next question, of course, is always what visa are you here on? And so we started with the startup visa, which is a visa that encourages foreigners to move to Japan and start small businesses. And then after the startup visa, we graduated to the business manager visa. So we are here entirely because we are operating a business in Japan. So each visa renewal is dependent on the success of our business and our ability to show Japanese immigration that we have earned X number of yen in our business and we're able to support ourselves. So our small business is beekeeping, and we have a guest house and all kinds of little plans for the future. We're opening a retro shop in our guest house garage. We hope to make hot sauce in the future, so we're growing hot peppers. And that is a good segue into one of our other bullet points that we wanted to talk about, community integration, which is business relationships and collaborations.
Yeah.
That's a really B's first philosophy, Beelosophy. Yes, I like that. I like that, Meg. So collaborations between businesses are pretty big here. I think a lot of businesses collaborate with each other in different ways, and maybe that's partly because here in the Japanese countryside, a lot of the businesses are, just ran by one person or a husband and wife, two people. They don't even have staff. So one thing I want to talk about is involvement with the community and how, from a business aspect, and how you have to think more about networking with other local businesses here in Japan, and you share their business, they share your business. It's a very reciprocal relationship. And one example of that, which is what made me think of this topic, is that one of our favorite restaurants on the island, they're all one of our favorite restaurants on the island. We love all the restaurants, but a local pizza place is asking Evan to grow some peppers. And then they're going to feature our peppers on one of their seasonal pizzas, which is really exciting. So they will actually put on the menu, whatever the name of their pepper pizza is, and then it'll say Benton Homestead Peppers. So right now they have collaborations with a couple other local farmers, and they have an Inoshishi wild boar pizza, which is made up of Inoshishi from one of their competing restaurants in the neighborhood, who is an Inoshishi restaurant, but they've provided them with wild boar meat sauce that they put on their pizza. So on their menu it says Inoshishi, provided by Ino Stand, which is another one of our favorite restaurants. And they're working together that way. So even though they're technically competing businesses, they're both ran just by a husband and wife, working. They don't have any additional staff. They're collaborating. So they're using the wild boar on their pizza. And that's just one small illustration of the way that businesses can work together. What do you want to say about that?
Yeah, well, first we got a super chat from Gerald, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Gerald.
Yeah, we, yesterday, we got some hamburgers from a hamburger joint that just opened up, and their buns are coming from a bakery on the island. Mm-hmm. And I guess this is a cultural difference. I guess Japan is a lot more collaborative, less individualistic. So that's just something to be aware of for sure. If you're from a more individualistic culture moving here, that's just going to be an expectation.
And they're happy that they're using the bakery's buns for their hamburgers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the thing, right? We're just globalization is ending. We're getting away from like the big box chain stores and I didn't realize, because like Danny used to make fun of me because when we lived in New Orleans, we would be driving down the street and I'd be like, oh, I'd never seen that house before. And she'd say, oh, we've passed this street 20 times and you haven't seen the house. And it's like, well, dang, every house in New Orleans is this beautiful, like, gingerbread, Victorian-looking house. So, you only have 30 seconds to see it. So when I'm out and about in the community, I had not realized that the bakery right by the display has a poster talking about all of their ingredients, right? And so they have wheat from Ehime, which is where we're at, and I didn't realize that. I hadn't noticed that until just like last week when I was buying bread there, But so they're getting everything locally, and the sourcing is sort of what we're working on, right? Building out because society sort of collapsed, thanks boomers, and we're trying to rebuild everything. But this is what it's all about.
Go on.
Well,
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, that's just that's what we're talking about with collaboration with local businesses. So, one note that I had thought of though is that there is something we've been asked for so many we've been asked to contribute in so many different ways. I mean, you're going to come into the community with an idea of what you want to do, but they've got needs that they're going to want, and so if you're not continually doing what you want to be doing, they're going to have a need for you to fill, and you just have to be aware of that. So, we were asked to volunteer. So we are volunteering. We're volunteering with the dog rescue, and we're volunteering teaching English. And I've been asked so many times to be an English teacher, and I've had to say no. I haven't had to say no, but I just personally don't like teaching English, so it's not something I want to do.
Yeah. Well, also, we don't have any time for anything extra right now. So that is okay. So one thing I wanted to say about business relationships, collaboration, and volunteering, and how that sort of works together is, I feel like another way to be, accepted into a community quickly, when you first arrive somewhere, you're going to need a lot of help getting established. But we really tried to focus on, immediately trying to find a ways that we can give back to the community. So we didn't have time for any actual volunteering when we first arrived. We only started volunteering with the dog rescue officially every week, starting a few months ago, and we've been here 2.5 years. But we did start. I started out by trying to just support as many local businesses in small ways as we could. So one thing that I did when we first got here, and that I continue to do actually, is it's just a little tiny thing, but it seemed to have made an impact on a lot of people. Was I went on Google Maps and started leaving reviews every time we went to a new restaurant. I would write a review. Of course, I'm going to give them 5 stars. All the restaurants on our island are phenomenal. There's not a bad place to eat on our island. But I left each review intentionally in English, and because we're a tourist area, a lot of foreign people pass through. So each review starts out with, I am a foreigner living on this island, and this is what I think of this restaurant. And almost all of them have written to me or said something in person, personally, to thank me for that review, because they say a lot of people look at that review and come to our island. Restaurant. So it's just a little thing, but as I was looking at some people's reviews, I would see, another foreign person had traveled through on a bicycle trip, and maybe they left like a questionable review saying something like, I don't know if foreign people are allowed here, just sort of like a weird review. I'm like, why would you think that? Why would you write that review? So having a review from a foreign perspective and from somebody living on the island, they're happy to have that. And that's just a teeny tiny thing. It takes me 2 minutes. Literally, it's like, it's not, I write each review personally. It's not cut and paste, and I do, make it specific for, like, here's my favorite thing on the menu. This is what I like about this restaurant specifically. It's just a little thing, but it helps. When you help other businesses, then they're going to help your business as well. And then, it's because of building those relationships that, then we start getting invited to community events. We start, getting invited to participate in the local markets. That's how we got invited to there's a flea market that pops up every couple of months, and we got invited from their very first event. They invited us to attend their market, and it's a very, especially in the countryside, but it seems to be very common in Japan to have, reciprocal business relationships. You help their business, and then they're going to help your business, even if it's in small ways. Does that make sense? I think that's really integral to being part of the small local community.
The situation on Ōmishima is unique because it's a tourist-based economy, but the tourist-based economy has essentially only existed for the past 20 years since the bridges were built here, which was 2001, mm-hmm. Right? So now the business, the tourism is just booming, and it's hard to keep in mind the fact that it's a relatively new phenomenon here. And it's beautiful. The surroundings are just like, jaw-dropping and gorgeous every time we get a chance to actually like drive around and have some free time. It's just amazing. And it's only enabled by the bridges, so before it took, and there's hundreds of islands around here, but only 6 of them have bridges connecting them now, right? Mm-hmm. And so you look around, and Ōmishima itself is unique because it's got a big tourist draw on the opposite side of the island from where the bridge is. And so since that's the draw, it's the temple. And since people used to come to the island before there were bridges to go to the temple, and now it's still the main draw. So there's a main road that connects the bridge off ramp to that temple complex and the little downtown area there. So basically, sort of between the bridge and the temple.
Steve's got to go. Bye, Steve. Thanks for dropping in.
All right, buddy. Thanks.
I think we're going to do a farming topic soon. If you're still here, Steve, we'll talk about farming again, and we'll have you be a featured co-host again, since you're the local rural Japan farming expert. So I'll talk to you about that soon.
Yeah. So anyway, long story short, it's not like there's a main drag that you might find in other places. Like there's a in Mexico they call it a malecon, the road along the beach. That doesn't exist here. But it exists in an embryonic form, and so basically we're just all trying to figure out how this is going to work, and we're all kind of building it out. You know, and so we're from there. So, you know, one thing I've just been trying to say with this channel is it's not enough to just. A lot of people approach us about starting a guest house, and we are worried about there being too many guest houses, you know. And one thing I'm just always saying is, you've got to do something else other than a guest house. You have to actually do something to contribute to your local community, to just have a tourist attraction at the very minimum, to provide reasons for people to come to stay at your guest house. Otherwise, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. Unless you're right next to a ski resort or something like that that's going to provide constant draws of tourism, you just got to be thinking about ways to contribute to your community. And so
Yeah. So whether that's, you know, providing something for the tourists to do once they get here besides just sleep, you know, so working with other local businesses. We get contacted quite a bit recently by people who are wanting to come here and organize bike tours. Let's see. Also, Meg has to go. Nice to see you, Meg. Thank you so much for stopping by. I always appreciate your input. So there does seem to be, I mean, for a couple of months there, every single person who contacted us, which is great, you know, but every single person, I was getting an email at least weekly from people saying, oh, I want to go there and start a guest house. I want to go there and start a guest house. And it's like, well, yes, tourism is increasing. The bridges have only been here for 20 years. You know, they're still sort of like responding to the influx of tourism. We can see, you know, shifts happening on the islands. But what we really need is things for the tourists to do once they're here besides just visit the temple. You know, we need restaurants. We definitely need more restaurants. All of the restaurants are amazing, but many of them are, you know, reservation only. They're booked out. They're only open. Some of them are only open a few days a week. You know, we need places for the tourists to eat, things for them to do, and things for them to see and experience. So in the last few months, we've been contacted by quite a few people who said they're coming here and they're either thinking about bike tours, they're thinking about camping experiences, you know, scooter tours, taking people to further reaches of the island than the cyclists usually see, because it is quite a big island. It takes an hour to drive the circumference, and of course we have all the neighboring islands as well. We've got some people coming in to do, you know, educational, come and stay and learn about history, that sort of thing. So I don't want to, like, I'm not saying this to, like, give away people's business ideas, but I was really, I'm always happy. It's been a lot of really good positive reinforcement to what Evan and I have been talking about and saying, yeah, this is a really great place to come visit, but more tourists, we need more things to do besides just places to stay. And then as we were talking about that, the shift in the people who've been contacting me and their business ideas also seems to be shifting towards providing those activities and providing those resources and things for tourists to do. So that's been really cool to see. In the last few months, I think maybe half a dozen people have contacted us specifically to say they're coming here to start tourism-based activities, businesses, which is really exciting. Are the tourists mostly Japanese? It's a good mix. It depends. It's seasonal, of course. So in Japan, it's nearly 100% Japanese tourists during Golden Week and New Year's. And then, the rest of the year is just whenever people get their vacations. But we have a lot of Japanese tourists and we have a lot of foreign tourists. So it's a combination of both in this area. I'm sure it's different, throughout Japan, of course.
Yeah, let's just go to these questions. There's some good questions. So,
Okay.
FBC football, are there any traditional craftsmen on the island? Yes. And that has been a big, that's just a value that we share is hiring local craftsmen. In Japan, I'm sure you're aware, there's these Akiya renovation groups, and there's, there's renowned craftsmen that are being invited to work on these amazing projects. And we're not hiring any of them. We're just hiring the local guys because that's what we wanted to do. We want to help out the local community. And yeah, there are some amazing traditional craftsmen on the island. The guy just $2 down from us is the Tateguya, the guy who makes the doors and windows and everything like that for your house. We've hired him for many projects, and we referred him on to other projects. And yeah, just traditional carpenters and everything like that. Yeah, I mean, and yes, there's electricians and plumbers and things like that, and everything that I can't do on my own, I'm hiring someone locally to do. So absolutely, that's something we're doing.
Darren's got to go on my final room to renovate. Great stream, and see you on the next one. Thanks for taking the time to join us, Darren. I know you're in the middle of all kinds of things.
And Darren's working with traditional craftsmen in his area too.
And also probably getting into bees. So we've got a lot of things in common with Darren. So
Right.
we hope to make a visit out there at some point. I don't know when, but we got to go visit Darren and Steve. That'd be so much fun.
Okay, and you answered Keith's question about the Japanese tourists, right?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So Trader Joe's, why did you decide to move to this island? We get that a lot. We get the question a lot. We've covered it extensively too, so go back and watch our old videos. But long story short, climate was a big concern, and then we found this particular house online that was here. And also, Imabari City offers a startup visa program, which at the time was a rare thing. So we came up with a list of requirements, and Ōmishima met all of those.
Yeah, so we started out looking at all of Japan, and at that time the startup visa was only in about 20 areas throughout Japan. That's currently in the process of changing over the course of 2025. The startup visa is being rolled out nationwide. But at that time, it was limited to only certain areas. So Evan did a long research process of finding areas that offered the startup visa in combination with our other requirements, which for us was climate and honeybee based and tourism. We knew for our businesses we wanted a warm climate with no snow, and then we also wanted a steady flow of tourism while also being far enough away from the city that we could live a rural life. And all of those things came together with this very specific island. So that's how we chose it. We spent a lot of time researching, and we chose this island based on our needs. There are, I mean, any place in Japan is going to meet somebody's needs. There's so many wonderful places nationwide, but that's how we chose our specific island for our specific needs.
And then Kyle asks, is there anything uniquely available in terms of agriculture here on Ōmishima? And yes, there's a lot. We're blessed with a very a very mild climate here. We can grow pretty much everything.
There's bananas on our island, which we would hope to get at some point. Ever since we moved here, we've been watching a banana plant and seeing how it survives each winter and if it keeps coming back. And it keeps coming back. So every time we drive across the island, we check on the banana plant and see how it's doing.
Yeah, it's not commercially viable, but yeah, the way that Japan is organized is, yes, every little area they've been farming here for many years, and so they've figured out what grows best in those areas, and so Ōmishima and Ehime Prefecture is known for its citrus, and there's hundreds of different citrus varieties here. Oranges and lemons and everything, and so the citrus season goes from like September to now. There's something to pick, so it's all year almost, and our honeybees really go along with that, and we knew that coming here, but we did not realize how synergistic it would be. So that's another great local product here is this citrus honey, also the cherry blossom honey, and then. So that's the big one, citrus, but then there's new things like there's a guy growing avocados. We're hoping to get into limes, which is another citrus, of course, but and then Japan has a really humid climate, but we're in the rain shadow of the Seto Sea, so we're slightly less humid here. So there's a guy there's quite a few grape growers here for wine grapes, and we're thinking about getting into that as well.
Yeah, locally they have Ōmishima's first winery has a co-op of grape farmers. So even people who have not traditionally farmed grapes and maybe their main crop is citrus or something else, they can join the local winery's grape growing co-op, plant some grapes. They have it all figured out the way they like them planted, and then you'll get, they sort of all help each other harvest. And then it all is purchased by the winery. So if we ever get into that, it's already set up. It's just a matter of saying we have farmland with this much space, and then we have this much money to purchase, and then they sort of help you figure it all out. We do not have the investment for that right now, but it's something that we hope to get involved with in the future. A number of our neighboring farmers are a part of the co-op, and we have gone and volunteered to help with harvest before. So that's something that we'd like to do in the future. Add that to the list of all the things that we would like to do in the future. That's one we probably actually will do sooner rather than later. As soon as we have the investment, we've got a couple pieces of land picked out that we think would be good for that. Are you growing grapes now? So no, not yet, but it's something that we would like to do.
It's also marginal for grapes. So we went and volunteered with the harvest, and you end up picking a bunch of grapes and then picking out the bad ones because it's so humid here that what happens is when the cluster fills in, the grapes start to touch each other. They trap moisture inside that cluster, and then the ones inside rot, and that's our big challenge. So. And that's another thing we can contribute, just speaking English and doing this research to study what is going on, and our unique background coming from the Gulf Coast, which is also humid, and it's also an area where they're making inroads with the winery business there.
Yeah, we grew up in Oregon's Willamette Valley, which when we were kids was not a big wine growing area, but if anybody's into wine big time, they're probably familiar with Oregon's Willamette Valley because during our lifetime it sort of put itself on the map in of wine growing regions.
But so anyway, I'm not familiar, but I know of varieties that are being grown in the Gulf Coast of the United States where it's super humid in the summer that the wineries have never heard of here in Japan, and so.
Mm-hmm. And going along with that, before we jump to the other comments we missed, Rishi says a well-built permaculture system can be its own tourist attraction. And yes, that sort of goes along with what we were thinking as far as education and workshops with the honeybee, and the farming is going to be a smaller portion of our business until we either figure out how to hire someone or get things more streamlined. The focus is bees first, and then farming is just more of a side quest until we get the hot sauce and the peppers going and all of that. But yes, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, big part of the
For sure.
5-year plan.
Now, we missed a couple here. Gerald says, do you get more people staying with you who have traveled to Japan multiple times and have already done the common Japan culture, like staying in Tokyo, Kyoto, etc., and want something different? And that's a good question, and we have a good mix. We get, we greet every guest personally. And so I do get a chance to talk to them. I always ask about their travels and how they found our guest house and where they're going next and how many times they've been to Japan. That sort of comes up with almost every guest. And it's a good mix. So we do get people who are like, yeah, I've been to Japan 3, 4, 5, 10 times. I've already done everything. Some people, this is not their first time even doing the cycling trip on the Shimanami Kaido. Some of them are coming back for a second or third time to do the cycling. Some people say, oh, well, I did it, I'm such an avid cyclist, I just did it in one day my first time, so this time I'm coming back to spend, 2 or 3 nights and explore the islands more. Sumi's trying to jump on the keyboard. She's very feisty. And then we get quite a few guests who it's their very first time in Japan, and they made it to the Japanese countryside, so it's really interesting. I think we're getting a lot. I mean, obviously Japan has record-setting tourism at the moment, so a lot of those people are going to be first-time people in Japan, and there's just a lot of information out there. So some people, even though it's their first time in Japan, they are making it out of the typical Tokyo, Osaka, Kyoto circle, and expanding a little bit further into Western Japan or other areas that don't commonly get tourists. So we do get a good mix of all kinds of tourists, experienced and inexperienced. Now, Amy says, hey guys, I'm originally Tohoku area, living in New York, New Jersey. Tohoku had a booth promoting tourism, and a lot of New Yorkers were interested in wellness and spiritual tours in the rural area. We were all overworked. New Yorkers were not really interested in Tokyo.
Interesting.
Yeah. Where is Tohoku?
Tohoku is northern Japan.
Northern Japan? That's really interesting. Let's see. What else did we miss?
Canada has a lot of winery B&Bs.
Winery B&Bs. I've heard of that. Now, we are not going to super get into grapes, but Ōmishima has a wonderful winery, and they have a second winery in the works, which is actually going to be, their tasting room will be in our neighborhood. So when that opens, we're super excited about that. That's also part of the reason that I want to get the retro shop going this year, and it's part of the reason, it's a really small thing, but that's part of the reason I want to get the mural painted on our honeybee workshop, is I do sort of anticipate that our neighborhood is going to have more walkable attractions. And so I think our mural is just going to be a great place for people to stop and take Instagram photos as they're walking from, oh my goodness, Sumi. Oh no. Crazy. You're crazy.
One of the things about Japan to be aware of is that the parcels of land are all very small, and so everything that we're working, we have about an acre of land, but it's all spread out over 5 or 6 different parcels, and so you're not going to be able to have that experience of your Airbnbs in the middle of a winery up on a hill or anything like that. Our Airbnb does have a field behind it where we're growing peppers or tomatoes, and so it does have that. We can walk to the bee yard. From there, we can walk up to our neighborhood, to our house where the mural is that she's painting. So it's all walkable. It's all really nice, but it's not just you're right in the middle of nature. So yeah, everything we are talking about building out those types of things, but it's going to happen, but it's not going to be the type of thing that you think of. Everyone in the United States when they think of countryside, they think of gravel roads, and mile-long driveways, and it's nothing like that here. But it is definitely here. Nature is here. It's right outside our doorstep. But it's split apart. It's split up. So that's just something to be aware of.
So speaking of grapes, we've got a couple comments. Keith says, I bet fruit wines would go over well in Japan. I've seen a few here and there, but nothing like that Honeywood place in Salem, Oregon, our old stomping grounds.
Not familiar with that one.
I'm not familiar with that one either.
And they're growing cider. They're growing cider apples and pears in Oregon now too. I mean, Oregon is just all about that kind of stuff.
He's from Oregon.
Yeah, I remember you said that. And we do liqueurs, which I've been getting into that. That's fun too. And then since we had another Sinal from the Gulf Coast or Tennessee, so if you know what muscadines are, we could definitely grow muscadines here. You can't make just a pure, well you can, but anyway, that wouldn't be considered like a wine. Yeah, but there's a lot of opportunities for that type of stuff here. Absolutely, and value-added product. Mead we've talked about. Probably not gonna get into that, but anyway.
Yeah, we could, maybe we don't do it ourselves, but maybe we do a collaboration with a local business who wants to make mead, and we can provide all the honey for that, and that would be amazing. So somebody come here and make mead and use our honey.
Yeah.
Oh.
Gerald asks, have you reached out to travel agencies outside Japan to partner with you? Are there still travel agencies in the world?
There are, and we have been contacted by a few, but all within Japan. So we've actually had some inside Japan travel agencies contact us and book our guest house on behalf of their own clients. There's cycling groups that handle the accommodations for guests, and there's the Cycle Shimanami group, which JJ and her husband are involved with, and they are always promoting our guest house and other attractions and guest houses on the islands. So yes.
And we get a lot of guests from our YouTube, don't we?
We do, yeah. It still seems to be maintaining. No, our first year it was 20% of our guests were familiar with our story and knew about our guest house renovation prior to booking. I haven't been tracking it so far in our second year to see what the percentage is. But quite a few people, and I don't know if they're familiar with our YouTube before booking or if after they book, then they find our renovation videos and watch it, but it could still be at least 20% who, when I meet them, they mention, oh yes, I've seen your videos, happy to be here, can't believe I'm seeing it in person. It's, so that's definitely a way that we are, it's not direct income from YouTube, but it's indirect income from YouTube, because then as they book their Japan trip, they say, oh yeah, I remember, I watched that guest house renovation. We're going to be cycling the Shimanami Kaido. Let's go ahead and stay there. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and one thing that brings to mind is a way to contribute to your community is by coming up with ideas like this to solve these problems. Because yes, there's just tons of problems that people are facing. We don't need to really get into enumerating all of those, but yeah, thinking of ideas for how you can get people to come to your area. Not just like I'm going to start a restaurant, but specifically looking around you and seeing what type of restaurant would work well in that area
yes.
Coming from, if you're a foreigner and living in a new country, you're going to have a new perspective. So that's going to be a strength that you're going to have. And then another point is that goes along with these tours is just organizing, having some sort of organizing principle to put all these things together, put all these pieces together into a cohesive whole, and kind of selling it to people. There's a big need here for that.
You got Sinolv all excited. She's saying, you read her mind. She was thinking muscadines exactly, and then she says this is a great brainstorming session. That's exactly what we want from this. So even though we're not perfectly staying on our topic of community integration, this is exactly what we want from these live streams, is to just interact with y'all. So instead of just you and me having a conversation through email, and then it takes all that time for me to write to this person and this person and this person, the fact that we can have a conversation like this and then everyone else is also getting the benefit of these questions and answers, and we're all just sort of helping each other. That's exactly what we want from these live streams. So,
Yeah, and I want to grow muscadines because we did grow them in New Orleans, and so I have a few years history growing them, and I just know they would do super well here. They're super hardy, tolerant of humidity, and things like that. I'm leery of marketing them here. But if I could ship them to Tokyo, I'm sure I'd find a market for them. But so in all that's too, can we use the empty lot you owned and showed in a video, or do you need a bigger lot to grow grapes, etc., etc.?
Well, the empty lot that we own is going to be our chicken paradise and composting area. So we do have plans for the land that we own. However,
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have access to more land than we could possibly use. I was just thinking about it as we were planning what to talk about today, and I mean, we could easily employ 10 people. We could probably employ 100 people
well,
doing agriculture on this island.
there's
If we
so
had,
much farmland.
if we had the business built out, in terms of finding, markets for all those products and
which we
things
don't
like that.
right now. It's just us, but we've got to we've never employed people, but it's quickly going to get to the point that we need to figure out how that works and work on that, because there is, and not just us, but everywhere in Japan, there's so much farmland and a need to use that land, because every season, every year that land isn't being used, it's going to get harder and harder to get it back into farmland shape.
Well, and it makes it harder for the people around them. Because if we have a primordial forest next to us, that's going to be a lot of pests coming in and eating our produce. So if we can turn that into something that is going to be, more beneficial species for us, that's going to make our job a lot easier. So it's it's either you're expanding or you're contracting, and we need to get comfortable here with our life. But once we get comfortable, we need to start thinking about getting some employees here and really expanding our business, because that's a great need that the community has. That's a great thing we need to be doing to contribute. Next question about laws around alcohol production. I just don't know anything about that. I'm interested in it, but
no idea. We want to have, one of our things we're really excited about with the retro shop is we want to get some vintage vending machines and stock them with microbrews from around the Sato Sea area, and Evan talked to the local brewery about that. They thought it was a super cool idea, and they were really excited. And they said locals would come for that, like local people would.
Yeah, which I hadn't thought of, but yeah.
Yeah, so we don't even know the laws yet around stocking a vending machine with alcohol, so that's something that we have to look into. I'm sure there's some sort of license.
But I mean, you can have a vending machine with alcohol here.
You can have a vending machine with alcohol, but I'm sure, yes, there's some sort of, there's some sort of process. Japan has a process in place for that. We haven't looked into it yet, but it is something that we want to do. So we can't say with 100% certainty yet that we can do it, but we're going to pursue that and attempt to have a vending machine stocked with local craft beers. Now we have 2 minutes left, and we've got some questions coming in. So first of all, we'll answer these last questions, but we just, thanks for everyone tuning in again. We never know how this is going to go. We're still very new to these live streams, but we really love our little small YouTube community, and I'm just overjoyed anytime anyone joins in. And this month, we had an average, just looking at the average up here, it's been between 20 and 35 people at one time. So that's great. That's really fun, and we're happy that you're here, and we love the questions that you ask, and we like getting to know people, and we have our regulars who come back and comment and join all the live streams. So I mean, never feel obligated to join everyone, but we're always happy when you're here. So thanks for joining us. This one felt a little chaotic with Sumi running around and scratching us, but thanks for hanging in there, and we always appreciate your comments and questions. So let's answer these last couple, and that's probably going to be it for this month. So
Buffalo wings. Heck yeah.
buffalo wings.
Heck yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
Is there a beef or chicken farmer on the island? Yes to chicken.
No beef
No beef.
farmer, no sheep farmer yet. There is at least one local chicken farmer for getting local meat, and then at some point our chicken farm will be eggs primarily, and then baby chicks. But we don't have any plans at the moment to be a chicken meat farmer.
There's a lot of wild boar on the island.
There's a ton
so
of wild boar.
There are a lot of wild boar hunters. There's a group that, sells wild boar meat.
Yeah. Let's see. Do you believe Japanese people would hire a company that recovers fields from forests back to farmland, like bush cutting, tree removal, etc.? Do you feel they'd rather just leave it abandoned? Nobody wants it abandoned. No.
The issue is just the wages are so low. Wages in Japan have been frozen since the early 90s. So if you can just remember what you made in the early 90s, you're only going to make that to do some backbreaking work. So that's no, unfortunately. The good point is that land is super cheap here. Okay, like to the point of like they're literally giving it away. The problem is going to be tracking down the actual owner, because Japan does not have a system like the United States where once the owner dies, it goes back to the state. So you have to track down the descendants. You can use this land for free if you can find out who owns it, or you can even just buy it for the cost of just getting it transferred into your name. But finding the person and asking them to pay you money to take care of it, that's probably not going to happen. Or if they do, I mean, it's just not going to be worth your while to do it. I think there's going to be
unless you're doing that and rehabbing the land for yourself to use for your own business, then of course that's going to be worth it.
Yeah, it's free to use.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's government contracts available, and
that's true.
One of our clients is talking about starting a composting business, and probably using government contracts to clean roads, like clean up the sides of roads and take that material and compost it. That's an amazing idea.
That's something you've been talking about for years.
Yeah, we're maybe thinking about doing that in the future if we can get into hiring people to do that. Yeah.
So you don't think a co-op or association would be likely to hire a company for expanding? As far as clearing land, I don't know. I wouldn't ever tell anyone,
Well, one thing that we're coming across is people are asking us to work for them, and we just don't have time, and so we're kicking around the idea of like of having employees that work for us but are paid by other people, like as a subcontractor. And I think that's something that could work. That's something to consider. Again, the wages are super low. You gotta really come up with some ideas in order to make it profitable for you, and in order to make it make sense. But yes, that's something we're thinking about. So
yeah, definitely worth. I would say talking to, like, figuring out what the need is in your local area that you're looking at, and talking to someone who has more of an understanding of a very specific, like, hyper local area and those kinds of needs.
And if you're doing the startup visa like we did, or the business manager visa, what you want to do is have potential customers to actually show immigration. And so if you could go to that place and locate and contact someone who would potentially hire like one of your employees, as a service, and you can come up with a list of names to actually show people and how many hours a week they would need and be willing to hire, that would help you get that visa. So
Yep. And Marcus says he was playing our video on the drive to his Japan festival, and they just parked right at the end of our video.
Wow.
So we got this is great. You guys filled our time all the way to the end. So thanks for being here with us. But we do have to go this time. We got a busy day ahead of us in order for us to be able to take some time off tomorrow. So thank you guys for coming along with us. Let me know in comments or some way, feel free to reach out, comment on other videos or in the comment section of this video. Let me know what you want next month's topic to be. You can always send questions ahead of time, and that gives me a good idea for what we should talk about next month. So definitely curious. I want to talk about what you guys want to talk about. So let us know. What should next month be? What should we chat about and brainstorm about next month? Have a great month, guys. We'll have a video out for you this week sometime. Working on it. And we'll see you in the next live stream, guys. Have a good month.
All right. Thanks, y'all.